and wherever you want to talk sports.
Now it's time for Monty in the Morning.
You know, here on the Monty Show, I mean, we like starting the show with massive, huge breaking news. We love starting the show with breaking news, but first you got to hit subscribe. Take a picture that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Post that picture on Twitter or Instagram, and you must tag The Monty Show, MONTY The Monty Show, and SLC Supercars right there. Well, why do you want to do that? Because, well, you'd like to win an Xbox Series S, which we will give away when we get to 1,500 subscribers.
Subs!
On this very here program. And without further ado, massive breaking news to start the show this morning. Phoenix Suns all-world point guard Chris Paul has entered the COVID protocol in the NBA, and he is out an indefinite amount of time.
The coronavirus.
Oh, indeed. According to Shams, Phoenix Suns All-NBA guard Chris Paul has entered COVID-19 health and safety protocols and is sidelined for an indefinite period of time, sources tell The Athletic.
Dude, what are we doing?
I don't know.
What are we doing?
This is a massive story. Now, if you are Chris Paul, are you not calling Mike Conley and thanking him for refusing to play while injured?
This is very frustrating out of Chris Paul. I would be shocked if Chris Paul was the guy who was going out, clubbing certainly, but it's how does this? Every time this happens, I'm just like, dude, how do you allow this to happen? You're in the postseason. How do you allow COVID to sideline you? How does that happen, dude? And the reason, I have this mentality towards it for professional athletes is because they have structure and protections in place to make sure that they have zero chance of exposure. This is not difficult. This is. I'd even go as far as to say this is a mistake out of Chris Paul. Somebody, somewhere in the Phoenix Suns organization, somewhere in the line, allowed COVID to break the circle, if you will, because everybody in the NBA is, for the most part, is vaccinated. So for this to happen, he would have had to spend time around somebody who had coronavirus. Yeah. It's unbelievable to me.
This is a shocking development. And again, if you're just tuning in, All-NBA guard Chris Paul of the Phoenix Suns has been placed in the COVID-19 protocols for the NBA, and there is no timetable for his return or eligibility to return to the team. He will not practice. He cannot be around the club. He can't be at their practice facility. He cannot be anywhere near the Phoenix Suns at this moment. There is no word on how Chris Paul may have been or if he was, in fact, exposed to the coronavirus. This is just a shocking turn of events. And again, we don't know the schedule for the Western Conference Finals, but there is no doubt now that Chris Paul is in jeopardy of missing the first game or two of that series. I mean, if you push this out 10 days, you certainly are in the window to start the Western Conference Finals. This is a shocking development. I mean, they're not the same team without Chris Paul.
Not even close. I mean, his impact is massive for them in a variety of different ways. I mean, yes, in the elimination game in Denver the other day, he gave you 37 or whatever, but at the end of the day, his impact is massive. I mean, you're talking about a guy who distributes. You're talking about a guy who sets the tone for this team. You're talking about a guy who allows Devin Booker to actually get space and score. I mean, it's a big deal. And that's why, to me, it's frustrating as hell because there's no reason for Chris Paul to be in the COVID protocol. It should never have happened. And all that means is it was probably a family member or it was, I guarantee you, it was a situation where everyone was like, oh, everything's cool, right? We're all good. We're not at any risk here. We're good to go. It's not like he chose to get coronavirus, But the problem is that I'm sure that he or the people around him in his circle were not diligent enough about protecting him. And this is what happens. I mean, this is potentially, again, hot take guy, right? But this is potentially, if he were to miss the first, let's say, 2 games of the Western Conference Finals against either this Jazz or Clippers team, whatever it ends up being, I mean, you're talking about potentially losing out on your last opportunity to make a finals appearance because you got COVID. I mean, that's horrible. Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what you do. I can't this in my mind, I agree with you 100%. This has to be something outside of the Suns circle. This has to, and you saw him go into the stands, hugging his parents. Like,
yeah.
To me, it feels like, hey, some friends and family, some folks came to the house. Maybe it was Jake from State Farm. I mean, I don't know.
Or Cliff. Uncle Cliff from State Farm.
I mean, Anyway, the point is, somewhere along the line, Chris Paul did something he shouldn't have done, and it is going to cost the Suns dearly. And you know what the problem here is? If you're the Phoenix Suns, everything was going perfect.
Perfect.
You had a week off. You have the Jazz and the Clippers battling tooth and nail. You have an injured Brooklyn Nets team now extending their series with the Milwaukee Bucks. You have an injured Joel Embiid. Like, everything was perfect. And now all of a sudden, arguably your most important player is not potentially going to be available to you. I just cannot even fathom.
It's the worst of the worst.
I can't even fathom.
It's the worst of the worst, dude.
It's amazing. Driftwood says, fake news. He will test negative by the end of the week.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, yeah, that might be true. I don't think it's fake news at all. I think it is shocking. And by the way, for all of you, there's a couple of people talking about false positives. You are not tested once and put in the protocol. You are tested, you fail, you are tested again, and then you are tested a third time. So it is very difficult to get placed in the protocol. It's not something that happens after one positive test.
For good reason.
And my guess is this was not even a positive test. My guess is this was a breach in decorum. This was something Chris Paul did or was close to somebody who tested positive. Do you remember Kevin Durant being pulled off the bench for the Nets because his barber he wasn't wearing a mask in a car? Like,
yeah.
That's what this feels like to me. And there's no getting out of those protocols. There are minimums in place. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is absolutely crazy. Having said that, we will keep you up to date on that story as it gets updated. I'm sure as the day goes on, we will get details on that. But your guy, your boy, your man, Kevin Durant, lost his mind last night, Jake.
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am.
Look at Jake's face. Look how just...
I mean, it's incredible. You know, my guy coming through, 49, 17, and 10. I mean, I don't know what else I can say. I mean, the numbers, as usual, speak for themselves. So, I don't know. People already on Twitter last night were like, hey, tomorrow's show is going to be the slurpification of Kevin Durant. And all I have to say is you're damn right it is. You're damn right. Because James Harden was out there on one leg doing the best that he could possibly do, which I give him huge respect for. Clearly very much hurt. And I give Jeff Green a lot of credit too, man. I mean, 27 points. I think it was 7-8 from 3. Like, the guy balled out, and they found a way to win that game. And all I'm saying is I think that Kevin Durant did what superstars do from time to time, and he did not leave it in the hands of the officials. He didn't leave it in the hands of the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis. He left it in his hands, and he knocked down a bunch of shots and willed them to victory. Now, can he? Is it going to take that level of performance again in Game 6? I don't know, man. Because certainly you're not doing this on a night in and night out basis. That was definitely a one-off. Hey, we need you tonight kind of game. So we'll see. We'll see what the next game looks like. But it's a huge victory for them. They've now got some breathing space. They're up 3-2. So you got 2 games to win 1. You're in a great spot.
Yeah.
Well, the Bucks are still going to win the series.
No, the Bucks are not going to win the series. Is Kevin Durant the best player in the world right now? Not currently playing, the best basketball player in the world. I have to say yes. And I think he is, and I've seen a lot of Kobe and Jordan. Kevin Durant reminds me a heck of a lot of Michael Jordan. He's got that killer instinct. He's got that want to damage you and end you, and he wants to do it himself. And he knows he needs to do it himself, and he went out and did it himself. And we've talked a lot about hero ball on this show the last couple of weeks, it feels like. That's playing hero ball because they need you to. There's no other option. It's Kevin Durant. And the best part about last night, to me, was that the NBA and I think pretty much universally everybody around, the Twitterverse and in the media,
world.
the sporting world, recognized how special that performance was, and I think that's really, really critical.
Yeah, and I think, while we're talking about, KD's performance, I think it's important for us to kind of distinguish the difference between, Donovan Mitchell and what he's doing in terms, because we talked a lot about Donovan playing hero ball and what Kevin did last night. And I think last night, I said this before the show. I think the best way to describe what this conversation is there are levels to the hero ball game. Some guys play hero ball, and that looks like them taking a bunch of shots, missing some shots, and not really helping their team win, right? Other guys play hero ball, and they give you, most times it's not 50, most times it's like 35, but you're going to get 15 assists out of them, and you're going to get, the 10 to 12 boards out of them. Kevin Durant happens to be a gifted scorer, so he was able to get to that 49-point number. Most guys, it's like 35, 10, and 10. So Last night, to me, the difference is that Kevin Durant was not only on a mission to score a lot of points and carry his team, but he was really on a mission to facilitate. And that was one of my biggest concerns about him as a player going into this game yesterday. To me, Kevin Durant is not known as a facilitator. He's not known as the guy that is going to play a great team game. He is the guy that you give the ball to and you say, hey, we need 20 out of you in the fourth quarter. Go and get it for us. That's what you know Kevin Durant for. So I was actually impressed with him last night being able to facilitate and rebound as much as he did. I thought that's really the better part of the performance.
Well, and I thought that the most impressive thing was James Harden. I mean, outside of Kevin Durant just continually going to the rack and putting it in the hole, nothing.
Wow.
Anyway,
wow.
The point is,
if you felt these balls,
the point is, I think James Harden being a 100% distraction for the Milwaukee Bucks was remarkable. And I think he had one field goal in the entire game. And I look at the fact that Holiday was in his shorts.
Yeah.
And I think James Harden loved it because he knew he wasn't capable of going to the basket. He knew that all of his energy was going to be spent on the defensive end. I think James Harden was a real important figure in that game last night, even though he didn't score a whole bunch.
Yeah, and I thought his defense on that last play against Giannis where he forces ESPN or the broadcast or whatever did TNT did they did a breakdown of it of him playing individual defense on the block against Giannis, and James Harden is literally rejecting the double team. The help.
No, my friend. What I'm telling you is Giannis was rejecting the screen to get to the basket. And the amazing part of that is he rejected a screen to take a turnaround fadeaway about 15-foot jumper that he had no chance to make. It was redonkulous that Giannis took that shot. When you have an injured James Harden who is on one leg that you've dominated, running to the basket on no matter who they put on you, you took a 15-foot turnaround fadeaway jumper that the elite shooters in the NBA struggle to make. Giannis was never going to make that shot.
Right.
Never going to make that shot. And as far as Harden's defense goes, I think he did everything he could do, jump it off of one leg.
Yeah.
I thought
that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to give the guy credit here. I'm saying that he played great defense when they needed it most. And yes, your point about him being a distraction, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he understood, and I think the team understood that obviously he wasn't 100% and he wasn't going to give you a typical James Harden level performance. And we saw
46 minutes.
Yeah, dude, and this is why, like, I know Mike Conley's not James Harden, but at what point does Mike Conley play, dude? Like, I'm looking at Mike Conley, I'm looking at all these other guys who are playing injured, and I'm just sitting here saying, like, dude, like, at what point does Mike Conley get on the floor? Like, if you're not going to play, just rule him out the rest of the series. You know, the Jazz need Mike Conley if they want to win this series. It's that simple. So I'm watching this game last night, and I'm like, man, like, Mike Conley could probably do this. Mike Conley doesn't need to score a whole heck of a lot. Mike Conley needs to be a facilitator. That's all they need him to do. And yet he's not playing. And so watching this game, I'm like, dude, like, at some point, Conley's got to get back on the floor, even if he's 70%. Get him on the floor.
Is it fair to compare Mike Conley and James Harden?
I'm comparing the situations. I'm not comparing them as
I don't think it's fair.
Okay.
I know they're both dealing with hamstrings, but we have no idea the degree of Mike Conley's hamstring injury. It's been 14 days. It's been 2 weeks today since he played. If he's got a hamstring injury, and it's probably a grade 2, I mean, 14 days is just not enough time to recover. My guess is that he does not play tonight, even though I think he should. I would really hope that he would play, even if he can't contribute much offensively. I mean, James Harden, arguably the best three-point shooter in the NBA, goes 0 for 8 from 3 last night. But as we just said, he was a distraction. Holiday guarded him very closely. And so I think there is value in Mike being on the floor, but he's not nearly the dynamic presence that James Harden is. And my feeling is that I think you have a lot more cushion here if you're the Utah Jazz than the Brooklyn Nets do.
Man, yeah. And I think this is where we begin to disagree, because I don't think that Clippers defense is going anywhere. I think that they've figured out how to slow the Jazz down, and the Jazz don't particularly have an answer for, hey, what are we doing with Kawhi at the free throw line in awkward one-on-one matchups? They haven't shown an answer for that, and I don't know that any team would have an answer for that. You know, if he's knocking that down, what are you going to do about it? There's not much to do about it other than your only option really is to double him and see if he can move the ball. But then you're talking about giving up a wide open 3 to Morris in the corner, who's been on fire. So that's why I say I'm not certainly sitting here saying that tonight the Clippers should be favored at the Viv. I'm not saying they should be favored, but what I am telling you is this should not be a thing where we go into this game thinking the Jazz are going to win this by like 5 to 7 points, because at the end of the day, they're going to make some extra shots that they didn't make in LA, but the defense is going to be there. So the question is, what's the answer? Like, what are they going to do that they haven't been able to do in the last 2 games?
Well, to be clear, the Jazz are favored by 2.5 at home, and the number's 222. How do you not take the Jazz in the over? I mean, if you're a betting man, if you're going to lay down money, which here in the great state of Utah is illegal, but if you're going to lay down money, I would tell you get all over the Jazz and the 2.5 and the over. I don't know how you don't bet that. There's a lot of people talking about COVID this morning, which with the Chris Paul thing. Eric C. says Jake has the most punchable face on YouTube. That could be. Cody Strickland says, Jake, tell me the truth. How many times did you get your Jolly Rogers off during KD's performance last night? Be honest.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Wow, don't ever play that sound.
It was incredible.
Spencer Morgan says, let CP play. This is ridiculous. What's ridiculous? I mean, that he broke COVID protocols? I mean, you're talking about protecting $1 billion industry, and you should risk $1 billion industry for Chris Paul. I don't think so.
No.
Eric C. says, let me see how much that depth of the Suns lasts. True. Good morning, y'all. Game day. Go Jazz. Napo Cardona says. Brandon Whiteside says, did you say James Harden like Holiday in his pants and that Harden liked it? Carry on. I did say that. You know. So far, Brandon says, the best way to destroy the Jazz is to put players into the hands of the Jazz medical staff. Okay, well, the Jazz medical staff, their job is not to make sure players are on the floor. Their job is to make sure that the players on the floor are capable of being on the floor. And this obviously goes back to the the Donovan Mitchell shot in game one. Like, why would the Jazz medical staff hold out Donovan Mitchell if they thought he could play? Why would they do that? That to me, and this has been the conversation we've had about this Donovan Mitchell situation and every other situation, including Mike Conley, and that is that it does the Utah Jazz medical staff no good to hold a guy out any longer than they need to hold him out. Like, what's the upside for the medical staff there?
Yeah,
taking public ridicule and being accused, and I mean, there's no upside there. They're not trying to keep Mike Conley out of the lineup.
Right.
I mean, there's no there to keep Mike Conley out of the lineup. There just is there's no win for them. I think tonight, if you're the Utah Jazz, you have to take some lessons from that Nets win, and that is that, unfortunately, and I don't know that Donovan Mitchell's capable of it. I could be wrong, but I think you have to give Donovan Mitchell the basketball and just turn him loose. And it's unfortunate because I certainly don't think Donovan Mitchell's on Kevin Durant's ability level. He's not making the shots that Kevin Durant made. He's also not 7 foot tall. By the way,
I was going to say that's the major difference that allows Kevin Durant to get to his spots is his height and his frame. And that's you can't teach, obviously, build and frame and size,
Right.
So Don is an amazing individual scorer and he is a killer and he wants to do those things to you. But, the reason that Kevin Durant's able to just rise up and hit that late three on the wing, when Harden's holding the ball for a gazillion seconds is because he's 7 foot tall and the defender can't contest. So, yeah, it's a tough situation.
But, my question for the Nets is, how much energy did they use last night?
A ton. An absolute ton. And I think moving forward, it's going to be a huge question. Again, you've got 2 games to win 1, so you like those chances. But at the same time, that was definitely like a, give it all we have to win this game. Not sure what tomorrow looks like kind of deal.
Well, Reggie Miller from TNT took a ton of heat on Twitter last night because he suggested that the Brooklyn Nets sit Kevin Durant and James Harden for Game 6 in Milwaukee and go all in on Game 7. Because you have Durant playing full 48 minutes, did not miss a second of the game. He was on the floor for every second of the game last night.
Mm-hmm.
James Harden on one leg played 46 minutes. Having said that, hell no, you're not doing that. This is a game where superstars are minted in these kind of situations, and I think James Harden will adjust. He clearly was not 60% of himself. He had no lift or rise for the jumper. That hamstring is clearly a larger issue than, that was described, and you understand that. But I don't think there's any way, Jake, that you sit James Harden and Kevin Durant for Game 6.
Yeah, I just think it's a gimmick. Like logically speaking, you just not you're just assuming that they'd be okay with losing Game 6. That you would be cool to put everything on the line for a Game 7, and I just don't think that that's smart basketball. I think you have a head coach in Steve Nash who's incredibly savvy, mainly because he's one of the best point guards that's ever played the game. So he understands how to get into certain situations to take advantage of certain skill sets. And he understands how to take his players and put them in those positions to create an advantageous situation. So I think for the Nets, it's like, okay, yes, we played a lot of minutes. That doesn't mean we got to sit these 2 guys. Is there going to be some minute management? Sure, maybe. Maybe we're not going to get them into the upper 30s, but you can't tell me you don't want 25 or 30 out of Durant in 25 minutes because he can absolutely do that, as we saw last night. So the question really has nothing to do with James Harden and Kevin Durant. The question really is, can Jeff Green give you 25 again? Can Mike James give you something other than, very little in the scoring department? Because he does a lot for you on the floor. He just hasn't been scoring too much, to be honest with you. And lastly, can Landry Shamet continue to knock down the 3? Because if he can do that, they're going to be in fine shape. So those are the questions that I look for with the Nets. And then I take that Nets situation and those same questions and I apply it to the Utah Jazz in this game tonight. And I say, okay, can we get 50% from 3 tonight? Are the Clippers going to play that same aggressive style of defense that we've seen. Yes, I think they will. I think that's just a foregone conclusion. So really what's going to decide this game is, can the Utah Jazz get into the paint and move the ball? If they get into the paint and they're swinging the ball, they're going to win this game, pretty comfortably, I would think. But they haven't shown the ability to do that recently.
I see. I'm trying not to be frustrated with the Jazz.
Yeah, well, you and everybody else, seriously.
I hope that Mike Conley plays tonight. And I hope that we get into a situation where the Jazz have a laugher tonight. The Jazz need to win by 15, 17, 20 points. They need to feel good again. You know what I mean? Like they need that.
Got to get your swagger back.
I think they're fully capable of doing that. But I don't know that they believe they're that team anymore.
Why do you say?
Because I don't think you can play George Niang in this series. I don't think that you can just keep doing the same things that you did all season long.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think they realize they don't have anywhere else to go.
Right.
Like the Brooklyn Nets have, not arguably, they have the best coaching staff in basketball.
It's crazy.
And you're seeing them make quarter-to-quarter, minute-to-minute adjustments.
Yeah.
Where they're moving guys, and you figure out that Landry Shamet last night has to play because he's the guy that can break the paint and hit a jump shot.
And he did that. He definitely did that.
And it opened up more space for James Harden so that James Harden wasn't, checked by Holiday real tight all the time. Now, he didn't make a shot, went 0 for 8 from 3, but you're starting to see that the Jazz don't have that ability. They don't have, and really in particular, Quin Snyder doesn't have the flexibility because of the way this roster is constructed to do those things. You're really relying on Mike Conley to come back and play so that Joe Ingles can come off the bench with Jordan Clarkson. Because the other guy I think that is shockingly really struggled at times in this series is Derek Favors. Like, they are attacking Derek Favors. If the dunk by Kawhi Leonard didn't show you that, they have continually gone into the paint and attacked Derek Favors.
The rack attack!
Yeah, and what they're also doing is they are not attacking Rudy Gobert in the paint. They're simply drawing him out so that he's playing Kawhi Leonard at the three-point stripe. So that he's playing Paul George at the three-point stripe.
Yeah.
And then they're just driving right around him. And they're either getting fouled or they're making a layup. What are the Jazz going to do about that? And my simple answer to that is, I don't think you have an answer. I don't think there is an adjustment to be made there because you're so limited on this roster.
Yeah.
And George Niang, frankly, is a really nice story, right? He's a guy that Iowa State Cyclones, and that's all well and good. But if you're not going to make threes, you can't play for us in this series because you're a defensive liability.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, your ability to get into the paint is a little underrated, but it doesn't outweigh the fact that you look scared and you can't make a three-point shot. And they're, again, attacking you defensively. I just don't see how you play Derek Favors more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You need to rest Rudy. But frankly, Rudy's got to play 40 minutes in this series.
Yeah, he does. And that's why I say I think it comes down to, for the Jazz, I don't even think that it has anything to do with the defensive end. Because like you were just saying, they don't really have an answer for some of these situations that they find themselves in. I legitimately think this series will be decided by the Jazz ability to, on offense for the Jazz, their ability to drive the paint, kick the ball, and swing the ball. If they do that and they make that three, they will win the series. But again, the Clippers are not allowing them, for the most part, we do see it, but for the most part, they've limited the Jazz ability to get into the paint and start that process. And that's why I say, typically against almost any other team that they, like if they were playing the Nuggets, I would say, yeah, they got this series. It's good. We don't have to worry. But what concerns me so much is that the Clippers have so much athleticism on defense that you're not even able to get to the paint to make the pass. You can't knock down the three if you can't make the pass.
Well, and I think your point is the Clippers' ability to limit the Jazz in doing just about anything the Jazz want to do.
And they're not used to that, by the way. I think that also needs to be said. All season long, what have you had? You've had a situation where the Jazz can come into these games, and what have we come to know about this team? They're gonna get out to a 10 or 15 point lead in the first 10 minutes of the game. The whoever they're playing is gonna reel them back in a little bit. It's gonna be close at the half. They're gonna put them away at the beginning of the third, and they cruise to the victory in the fourth. In this series, what have we seen? Every single game has started with an 8 to 12 point run for either team.
Yes.
And then everything evens out, and the third quarter kind of decides it. The difference is the Clippers are stout enough defensively to handle that, and they know it's coming. That's what concerns me. That's what majorly concerns me tonight.
Well, this has been a series of runs. There's no doubt. I mean, when you see the Jazz go, 3 of 17 the other night, 0 of 21 in the first game.
Kawhi Leonard is not going to play tonight.
Not surprising. Not surprising. More breaking news here on the show. Kawhi Leonard is expected to miss Game 5 against the Jazz tonight with a knee injury suffered in Game 4. We talked about this yesterday.
Well, this changes everything now. I mean, now everything I just said doesn't count because they don't have one of their best defenders. So
yeah, I wonder now, and I think what the question that has to be asked is, if you're the LA Clippers, now what is your adjustment?
Yeah.
And I think it is you have to attack the paint, and I think you got to go all in, absolutely all in, on Kawhi Leonard coming back for Game 6 at home.
Yeah,
and I think that this is kind of what you thought was going to happen.
The war of attrition is real this year, man.
Well,
honestly, it's real.
But why is that?
Yeah, well, we know. Yeah. The offseason.
Because of the schedule, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have a situation now where tonight, if you lose this game tonight, I'd be shocked. I just don't see how you would lose this game tonight.
Now you shouldn't lose. I mean, now without Kawhi, now we're talking about not having it. Now you don't necessarily need Conley. Now it can truly be Don does his thing. Again, I still maintain that they need to get back to moving the ball because that's when they're at their best. But the no Kawhi thing, I mean, that's a huge development. I mean, and the tweet also says that he's in doubt for the rest of the series. So that tells me that that's a pretty major thing he's got going on. So
I don't think he's in doubt for the rest of the series. That'd be shocking. I mean, if he misses the rest of the series, you're talking about a meniscus injury, or I have real difficulty believing that he's in doubt for the rest of the series.
I'm just surprised he's not playing tonight. I mean, he was in the post-game presser. He was all about not talking about that injury and just kind of.
Well, I mean, I think that also tells you that, he's not going to tell you that he's injured. I mean, that's not surprising.
Man, I don't know. This is crazy, bro. I'm honestly sitting here like this now to me is one of those games that the Jazz should win, and now I'm sitting here like, okay, the series is going to end in 6 because if you don't have Kawhi, this totally changes the dynamic of what the Clippers do on defense.
Well, let's talk about what this means for the Jazz. So what this means for the Jazz is you can afford to be much more aggressive offensively. Because Kawhi Leonard really was the guy that was making life difficult for Donovan Mitchell. And you saw that matchup zone that the Clippers were playing at the top of the arc especially was really effective in keeping Donovan from shooting those threes. So I think now if you're Donovan Mitchell, now you have to get uber aggressive. And there's an upside and a downside. The upside is you're going to get into the paint a lot more. Because my guess is the Clippers are going to take away his three-point space a lot more. He's going to have to get into the paint. Well, with the ankle injury that Donovan's dealing with, every time he leaps to the basket, you're worried what's going to happen when he lands. So there is some up and down in that. But I think what this also means is that you now have to use Rudy Gobert much more often on the pick and roll. Because Kawhi is very effective at taking that lob away from Rudy Gobert And without Kawhi in the game or able to play, you really have to get more out of Rudy Gobert. And what that tells me is that the Jazz also have a lot more room for error tonight. You can afford to see if Rudy can give you any offense if you throw him the ball in the post. And I don't mean back to the basket, make a move. I mean, get in there, break the paint, kick to Rudy, let him try and dunk it, throw him lobs over the top. I think you have a lot more freedom to do that now. If you are the Utah Jazz, excuse me.
Yeah.
You have a lot more freedom to do that now. I think this just means you have to be a lot more aggressive offensively because their best defensive player is not going to be there.
Yeah, and I think you got to look to put him away tonight in Game 6. I think, again, we don't know how long Kawhi is going to be out. We don't know if it's just tonight or if it is indeed Game 6 or the rest of the series. We just legitimately don't know. So if I'm the Jazz, I'm like, all right, this is our opportunity. We can put this team away. We'll win tonight, and then we'll try to do it on the road in Game 6, and we'll be done, especially on the heels of the Chris Paul news. We don't know how long Chris Paul is going to be out. It could be, there are some people commenting that, it could be a false positive, or it could be any number of situations for why he's actually in the protocol, so until we know what that is, I think if you're the Jazz, you're trying to get out of the series as fast as possible. So yeah, tonight I would expect them to be uber aggressive offensively. Tonight's definitely going to be another 53-point shots kind of game, in my opinion. And if they do what they usually do, they should be around 120 points. That's what I would expect. Yeah,
this is a shocking day of news in the NBA. And again, if you're just tuning in, Chris Paul in the COVID protocols in the NBA, he is in question now whether or not he'll be available to play Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, no matter who gets there. I still maintain it's the Jazz. Chris Paul is in COVID protocols. We don't know what that means or how that happened. We don't know if that means that he has COVID. We do not know if that means he was exposed to it. We don't know if he was vaccinated or not. So there's a lot of questions around his situation with COVID. Obviously, that's a fluid situation. We'll keep you up to date on that. Brian Windhorst at ESPN is reporting that Kawhi Leonard will not play tonight, dealing with that knee injury. You'll remember in the fourth quarter, he and Joe Ingles collided in the paint on the break, and Kawhi was out the last 5 minutes and 25 seconds of that game that the Clippers would eventually win, and now he is out. Now, Windhorst is also saying not only is Kawhi Leonard not playing tonight, but he is in doubt for the rest of the series. That is absolutely a game changer. Kawhi Leonard sat up on a podium after Game 4 the other night and said, the only thing that matters to me is winning a championship.
Yeah.
And that means we've got 2 more games to win in this series. When he was asked about looking forward to the Western Conference Finals, he straight up said, all I care about is winning a championship. The next 3 games are all that matter.
Yeah.
Well, now it really is going to be, Game 6 and 7. If you are the Clippers, you got to find a way to win Game 6. If Kawhi doesn't play Game 6, the Jazz absolutely have to end this on Friday night in Los Angeles. You cannot afford in any way, shape, or form to lose tonight. This now, in my opinion, without Kawhi Leonard on the floor, becomes a must-win for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
So a huge, huge break. If you are the Jazz without Kawhi Leonard in the lineup, you have to believe that you are going to win this game. And I think you have to believe that if you lose this game without Kawhi, you're in real trouble in this series.
Yeah, and I think if you're the Clippers, I think also I would think that you would want to play a physical game with the Jazz tonight. You would want to put Don's ankle to the test. You would want to really try to battle them on that front, because we've seen and we saw it in this prior game that Rudy can be had mentally to the point where he'll pick up a tech. He'll pick up that technical foul. And you'll get that momentum, but. I don't know. I just think that without Kawhi on the floor, it's not only that you're losing his performance, you're also losing his veteran experience on the floor. In those moments when you've got 18,000 raucous Jazz fans, screaming at the top of their lungs in the Viv, and it's super loud, and you need somebody out there who's a floor general. And Paul George is not that guy. He is a second tier player, and that's right. That's a huge deal. So yeah, I think. I'm just honestly in shock. I mean, I can't believe we're sitting here talking about James Harden being hurt, Mike Conley being hurt, now Kawhi's hurt, and like, you've got Don's ankle. Like, all these guys are just breaking down, and I guess I'm not surprised, but it's just a real shame because I feel like these series could be just incredible basketball if health was not an issue,
Yeah, and I think this also tells you how difficult it is to play in the NBA. I mean, the beating that you take. And notice that all of these are leg injuries. I mean, you're talking about a knee for Kawhi. You're talking about hamstrings for Conley. And, you're talking about an ankle for, Kyrie Irving. Obviously James Harden's a hamstring. Like, it is a physical beating on your legs to play in the NBA. And to play 72 games in such a tight window, and everybody says, oh, you're paid millions, get out there and play. Well, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You had very little time off to recover. You look at guys like Anthony Davis who are, they're dealing with quads and groins and, LeBron
After the
James.
street clothes Davis.
Yeah, LeBron James hurting that leg. Like, this is not just they shut up and dribble, get out there and play.
It is a great point that all these injuries are lower half injuries.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're not looking at shoulders and,
yeah,
this is one of those situations where, you have to build depth in this league now, especially at the guard spot. I mean, you look at the way that teams are winning. You look at Kevin Durant last night. It's not that Kevin Durant was raining threes on the Milwaukee Bucks. He's dominating in the mid-range. And you look at the way the Phoenix Suns got to the Western Conference Finals. It wasn't raining threes. It's dominating the mid-range.
Yeah.
And you look at how Brooklyn is winning. It's dominating the mid-range. And that's one of the things that I think the Jazz are really struggling with right now is to find a guy other than Donovan Mitchell that can dominate in the mid-range. And it's why, your lack of depth at the guard position is really now your handicap at this point. Because I think what Joe Ingles is capable of. I think what, Bojan Bogdanovic is capable of. But you have no idea what you're going to get from Jordan Clarkson on a night-in, night-out basis. You don't know what you're going to get from Rudy and Derek Favors. I don't think at all that you want to or can count on a guy like George Niang.
Yeah.
You are reliant on Donovan Mitchell having an ankle that'll work and making three balls.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to shoot the three well, where the Jazz aren't going to win, because right now I think it's pretty clear the Jazz are hesitant to take the leash off and send him into the paint, because that's where he continues to get hurt.
Yeah, he has been roaming the perimeter. I would agree with that. I mean,
Yeah.
there have been a few times where the play has dictated that he gets into the paint and tries to work the floater game a little bit. But in terms of explosiveness and the way he usually plays, I do agree that he's definitely been trying to work the perimeter, play a lower contact style of game. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. His ankle, it's so funny how ankle injuries work. Like, some guys, like the Kyrie ankle, right?
Yes.
Like, he's not really even able to walk or even function. Whereas, Don did this ankle. First, he did it in Indy. He comes back from that. Then he has the ankle, he hits his ankle earlier in the series. And it's not even that he can't explode. It's like it just gets weak as the game wears on. It's like it just kind of runs out of gas. It's sort of it's like this weird thing where I'm assuming what happens is it swells up on him. He loses range of motion in his ankle, and it makes it really difficult for him to really do anything. So we'll see. We'll see. All I'm saying is the Kawhi light being out is a huge deal. That is a massive break for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, and there's some people reporting, and I would be cautious with the information that's out there, but there's a lot of people, saying that the MRI came back with no structural damage, but there is definitely a quote-unquote issue with the knee. And, that makes sense. I mean, what that tells me is that Kawhi Leonard probably does not have, any ligament damage in that knee. But what that tells me is that he's probably got a knee sprain, and there's some small tearing in one of the ligaments, and you cannot risk that with Kawhi Leonard, because if they're going to go on and win this series and go to the Western Conference Finals, they're going to need Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
And I think, by the way, not to continue to espouse about my awesomeness, I think the level of confidence winning at the Vivint is not high for the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
I think they know they can win at Staples Center, and then they'll roll the dice in Game 7. This feels like Kawhi Leonard hedging his bet and saying, we've been here against the Mavericks. We can do this against the Jazz. Let's take a game off. Let's rest for 4 days. And then let's come back on, Friday and get back to doing what we do in Game 6. That's what this feels like to me.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could be, and I can't say that for the Clippers, I can't say that I disagree because they are so reliant on Kawhi and what he's able to do. We were having this same conversation earlier in the show about the Brooklyn Nets and Reggie Miller getting a lot of criticism for saying that the Nets should sit out Kevin Durant and James Harden after what happened last night, and I disagreed with that. But for the Clippers, I mean, if that's the strategy they're going with, they're definitely playing with fire. I don't know that I'd be comfortable going with that strategy, but if they feel like they definitely know they can win it at Staples Center. So with that in mind, you're essentially putting yourself in a position where you're saying, okay, we're going to give you Game 5. We're just going to give it to you. Take it. Do you? Great. You can have Game 5. But we're confident that we can win 2 in a row, and I think that's incredibly ballsy. But if that's what it comes down to, it's what it comes down to. And like I said on the show yesterday, when you give athletes of this caliber, of that skill ability, a mission and a very simple goal, it's funny how that works out in the end. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think as far as the Jazz go, there's two sides to this coin. I agree with Red Hart Norvis, who says it's kind of sad if Kawhi is out, but we'll take it.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, you'd like to beat the best of the best with their best. But if you can't do that, you're happy to move on anyway.
Right.
I mean, right? I mean, you'd like to beat Kawhi and the Clippers, but if you got to beat PG and the Clippers, you're fine with that too. As far as adjustments go, Mick's like, what do you guys think the Clippers will do? I think it's pretty clear. I think Nick Batum plays a hell of a lot more minutes because he is one of their better defenders. And I think that you have to get a heck of a lot more out of Reggie Jackson.
Yeah.
Reggie's got to score 20 tonight, and I think he knows that. I think if you're looking for guys off the bench, I think you're just going to see the guys who played a bunch of minutes, and that's Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann, certainly Patrick Beverley, because Bev is a defensive guy. I think instead of 20 minutes, I think you're going to see Patrick Beverley play 25, 28 minutes.
You think we get a little DeMarcus Cousins tonight too?
I think
physicality.
I think he's very much in the George Niang business. I
Right.
just don't know how if Rudy Gobert is in the game, how does DeMarcus Cousins play? I mean, sure, if you want to play him against Derek Favors, because I don't think Favors can guard him at the stripe, okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
But who are you going to take down to play DeMarcus Cousins?
Yeah.
And the answer is I don't know.
I mean, it would be Zubats, I guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, but Zubats has been playing very well against Derek Favors.
He has, yeah, he has. All I'm thinking of with the DeMarcus thing is that DeMarcus has this edge about him where he's more than happy to go in and try to kick your ass for 10 minutes, in the paint. And if I'm Ty Lue tonight, I'm like, all right, maybe Boogie can be this sort of like, wild card off my bench where I can bring him in certain situations and try to get Rudy Gobert off of his game a little bit. If I literally give him the simple mission of, hey, go in, be really physical with Rudy, pick up a couple fouls, and beat him up a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think at this point in Boogie's career, that could be an interesting little fold or wrinkle to this game. So we'll see. I mean, again, with one less guy on your roster for tonight, you would think that everybody would just slot up one and maybe some guys get some extra minutes.
Yeah, it certainly will be interesting to see what that looks like. And just looking at some of the reactions to this, people are absolutely writing off the LA Clippers. And I wouldn't write off the Clippers. I still think, obviously, that's your best player. And to win a series without your best player is very difficult. Mm-hmm. The Jazz have not played very well the last 2 games. And I think a lot of that, as I said yesterday, was because they were on the road. I would expect them to play a heck of a lot better at home. But I would not go writing off the Clippers in entirety. I think that this is still a dangerous team. Now they're a wounded dog, and I think we all know how vicious they can be. I think that there is going to be I think this game is going to be very physical, is the right way to say it. I think now the Clippers know that they're going to have to attack the Jazz. And that means a lot more play in the paint. I think that means that Rudy Gobert's got to be disciplined, because I think in the first quarter, you're going to know how the Clippers intend to play this game. And if that means coming out and attacking the basket, you're going to know that right off the break, because they get into the paint with ease. I mean, the Clippers have no problem.
Yes.
Like you're talking about your best on-ball defender in Royce O'Neal. Kawhi Leonard just walked right past him for that dunk the other night. They know that the Jazz cannot stop them from getting into the paint. The question is, what do the Clippers do when they get into the paint? Because I don't see this being some 25-point win for the Jazz. It'd be nice if you had a laugher.
It'd be nice if you had, just one that you could cruise in. That'd be
I don't think
nice.
that's going to be the case tonight. I think the Clippers are going to be a motivated bunch, and I think the LA Clippers are going to come out and give you every absolute last drop that they have left in the tank.
Yeah, they're kind of feeding off of now we're definitely underdogs, no Kawhi. Let's give it all we got. And I think to that end, you can't let this series get to 7. I completely agree with you. You said that about 5 minutes ago. This series goes to a game 7. That is definitely a slippery slope. You don't want to be there.
Well, I will just maintain that tonight's a must-win. And I know I've said that 10 times, but the reason it's a must-win is because now with Chris Paul and COVID protocols and questions about whether he'll be available, win tonight, close on Friday, open the Western Conference Finals on Sunday.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that makes sense to me. And, if you are the NBA and you still haven't released that Western Conference Finals schedule yet, because you don't know you're getting a pivotal Game 5. By the way, there's also that. This is Game 5 of the Clippers-Jazz series. Whoever wins tonight probably wins the series. So this is a huge game. This is a huge night.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're going to the game, you got to be loud and proud tonight. And by the way, I was really surprised to see the Jazz tweeting out that tickets were still available for the game tonight yesterday.
Wow.
I was surprised by that.
Surprising.
I was really surprised by that. I mean, I think the Jazz need this fan base as much as they ever have, because you have a lot of guys that are not right now. Rudy Gobert has not played very well the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And he gets a lot of his swagger at home. I don't want to see Rudy complaining to the officials tonight.
Yeah.
I want to see Rudy with a 20-20 game.
Yeah.
That's what's required, right?
Seriously.
I mean, that's what's required out of Rudy Gobert. End this series just as soon as you can end it.
Yeah.
Because now there's questions about the Suns and their ability to be full strength for Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Let's see. Casey Finlayson says, how in the world are some of these guys going to survive playing in the Olympics and then starting up the season so quickly afterwards? I don't think you're going to see big names playing in the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about guys like, I think it was yesterday that Tatum and Draymond committed to playing. But again, they're not playing postseason basketball really. So, they've already been, obviously the Warriors didn't make it, and then Boston got eliminated early. So, they're fine.
I would not. If I'm Jason Tatum, I'm not playing in the Olympics.
Well,
I'm on the verge of becoming a superstar, an absolute stud in the NBA. I just wouldn't risk it. Honestly, I wouldn't. And Casey, I think it's a great point. Eric C. says, Jazz in 6, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Go.
We'll see. I mean, again, that was before the series started, that's what we had predicted. Yesterday I felt like the Clippers were going to win this series, but now obviously a lot has changed, with the Kawhi thing, and Conley still questionable, quote unquote. I really just don't understand what it's going to take for him to come back. I mean, it must be a just horrible, injury. Like, you would think that the Jazz are going to win this series. That's what common logic would tell you, but I don't know, man. There's just this certain thing for me where I need to see the Jazz come back and do it again. I need to see him control a game and really not allow the Clippers to ever have a lead in this game. That's what I want to see.
By the way, I think this takes away a lot of excuses.
It does.
This covers up a lot of moles on the face of the Utah Jazz. And if you lose tonight, I mean, I don't even know what you say.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be shocking if the Jazz lose this game tonight. I mean, shocking. And with the Chris Paul thing, Chris Paul doesn't play for the Suns. The Jazz are winning that series. I mean, this is good news if you're a Jazz fan. All that tumult and darkness that you brought into your life, the last 2 games for the Jazz, you can
that's out of the window.
Yeah, you can push those clouds out now, right? I mean, I think it's one of those things where you just don't know. I think you just don't know what's going to happen and how this team's going to react. I think it's very interesting. I'm trying to keep up on the news, by the way. We'll see what happens there. There's no update on Chris Paul. And that's what I'm looking for. And again, if you're just tuning in, you're talking about situations in Phoenix where Chris Paul is in COVID protocol. And now, by the way, how important does Cameron Payne become? Because he has played elite level basketball for the Phoenix Suns. And I mean, you got to think if Chris Paul's not available to start, Cameron Payne's going to start, right?
Let me, yeah, for sure, 100%, I agree with that. But let me ask this question. I think this is super interesting with the Chris Paul situation. Let's remember the treatment that LeBron got, the deference that LeBron got. LeBron goes to this tequila promotional event, right? And, potentially exposes himself, but the NBA still allows him to play. Will Chris Paul get that deference? Because I think Chris Paul has enough stature in the league to get it, but I think it's also situational. We don't know what the situation was. So there's still a possibility at this stage, before all the news comes out and we get the full story, there's still a possibility that he could play game 1 if the proper situation went down.
Right.
Where it was like a low-risk situation, and they're just trying to check their boxes, and he doesn't actually have COVID, and he tested negative. So it'll be really interesting to see how the league handles this because, again, I felt like when the LeBron thing happened that LeBron should not have played, but he's LeBron, so he played, So it'll be really, the point I'm making here is let's see how, Adam Silver and the league decide to handle this.
By the way, I think their explanation was pretty spot on. Mm-hmm. I mean, he went to an outdoor event where social distancing was in place. And anybody that wasn't named LeBron James had to be vaccinated to get into that event. So, as the NBA said, the risk was low. Now, if you are the Phoenix Suns, what happened to Chris Paul?
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that makes sense here is that Chris was exposed to somebody like a barber, a driver, a family member, somebody who was outside of the protocol.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting. By the way, again, is Chris Paul vaccinated? Because I don't know if Chris Paul's vaccinated or not.
Yeah, that's a great question.
If he is vaccinated, the protocol is much, 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 much less than if Chris Paul's not vaccinated. So it's a question of there's a lot of questions around Chris Paul.
Yeah.
But I think when you talk about depth and you start looking at the guys that really make an impact, Cameron Payne is a guy that's really made an impact for them. He shoots the 3 really well, and if you're the Suns, you hate to rely on him as a starting point guard, but he's put out for you. I mean, the guy shoots 42.5%.
He's serviceable.
He's
serviceable. You can work with him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you can work with him.
He's shot. Do you realize Cam Payne in the last 10 games has shot 56% from 3?
Yeah, man.
56% from 3.
Yeah.
For Cam. That's depth. That's depth right there. Let's see. Cody Strickland says there's a crazy amount of tickets left. Why? Why?
It's so surprising to me. I don't know.
That's amazing. Eric C. says, where's the depth you were talking about, Monty? LOL. With who? I mean, like, for the...
Phoenix has depth. I mean, you're
depth.
talking about if Chris Paul can't play, Cam Payne's going to start. Torrey Craig's going to come off the bench. Cam Johnson's going to come off the bench. I mean, they're fine. Honestly, they're fine. Like, obviously, it goes without saying that Cam Payne is not Chris Paul, but certainly the Phoenix Suns are in a better position to backstop the loss of their point guard than the Utah Jazz are. Let me put it that way.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think you're looking at a team that, by the way, you also have 2 superstars on that team. And I think you look at the Brooklyn Nets last night. You want to talk about depth? Look at the performances they got out of all of their secondary players. Jeff Green,
man,
gave them a huge contribution. Blake Griffin, who we talked about yesterday on this show, gave them a huge contribution. If I look at the depth of the Phoenix Suns, you're looking at guys like Cam Johnson and Cameron Payne stepping up. Torrey Craig, for the Denver Nuggets to say they made a mistake in letting him go,
yeah,
and they were hugging him and congratulating him after that series, tells you the quality that Torrey Craig brings to the floor.
Yeah.
And you could just watch. I mean, now they start to struggle after that. I am not at all a Frank Kaminsky believer. I am not at all a Dario Saric believer. But Dario Saric is a guy that's going to shoot threes and draw his fouls.
Yeah.
But they have guys that can backstop a little bit. The difference is the Suns will still score. The question is, can Devin Booker put the entire offense on his back? And will they ask him to do that? And the answer is no, they won't.
Yeah.
Because you still, by the way, you have guys like Jay Crowder that can rebound, that can handle the ball, that can shoot
threes. They're a tough
threes.
team, dude. They're a really chippy, tough team, man.
They are. It's pretty remarkable. Eric C. says Monty and Jake would think Cam Payne can get the Suns through the Jazz. It's not a matter of Cameron Payne getting the Suns through the... What are you talking about?
Utah Jazz fans are some of the most arrogant fans I've ever seen. You guys only watch Jazz basketball. You don't watch other teams in the league. And then when we talk about other teams in the league, you want to say that we're the ones who are wrong, even though we've told you for months on end now that the Jazz have one of the shortest benches in the league in terms of production. You've really got 2 guys that come off the bench and do stuff for you consistently, and that'd be Joe Ingles and that would be Jordan Clarkson. Those are the 2 guys, when you're fully healthy, who come off the bench and give you meaningful performances. Derek Favors comes off the bench and gives you some minutes. He's serviceable, but he's not going to win or lose you a game.
That's
right. And I look at Niang, and I'm sitting here saying, hey, yeah, the guy can come off the bench and knock down a couple shots. He's been a nobody in the postseason, so I'm not counting him for meaningful minutes in the postseason. So don't come into the comments and say, oh, well, you guys are being ridiculous with your campaign takes, when the guy's shooting 59% or whatever the hell you just said from 3 in the postseason. I mean, he's giving them meaningful,
Look, the way I would succinctly say this is, if anybody wants to question campaign, you just don't know what you're talking about. I mean, the guy has played an integral role on that team all season long. And to the point where he's one of the great stories in the NBA.
Yeah.
Because of how far he had fallen in his career. So if you're questioning whether Cameron Payne is a guy that provides depth, you just don't know what you're talking about. And nobody on this show has ever said that he's going to carry the Suns past the Jazz. And it is that, and those are the kind of comments that I'm like, like Eric C., I just think you don't know basketball then.
Yeah.
I think a guy like, when you come in and he says, Jake, talk about Payne like he can lead a team to a chip. Eric, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're just here to stir the pot. So I'm not going to read your comments anymore. And I think when you look at who the Phoenix Suns are arguably the deepest team left in the NBA. They have really good depth that contributes at a very high level. And again, I would point to Cameron Payne's three-point percentage because shooting is what you will miss with Chris Paul. He's not a great defender anymore. He is a good, not great defender. Cameron Payne and he are equal on defense. Where you really miss Chris Paul is the orchestration.
Yeah.
You miss him being able to go to one spot and make 7 out of 9 jumpers from that one spot and seal a victory to eliminate the Denver Nuggets. That's what you miss out of Chris Paul. You're not going to get 37 points in a closing game from Cameron Payne. That's what you miss from the intangible is what you miss from Chris Paul. But Devin Booker's capable of giving you between 40 and 50 points every single night.
Yeah.
They have plenty of guys, whether it's Crowder, whether it's Payne, whether it's
Craig,
Cam Johnson, Torrey Craig, that make threes. They have a very stout offensive center in DeAndre Ayton. They're going to be tough to deal with whether Chris Paul's there or not.
Yeah.
I think the teams now that are in real trouble, the Clippers, certainly the Milwaukee Bucks. We haven't even gotten to Giannis yet with all this breaking news.
Well, Giannis is the best player in the league, and he's an MVP, and everything's awesome, right?
Man, it is incredible to me that Giannis Antetokounmpo cannot take the ball in the last 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Because that turnover he had last night where great pass from Singleton to Giannis in the low block, and you could see Giannis was rushing to catch the ball and dunk it because he knew they were going to foul him. And he isn't good from the free throw line, so he creates a turnover. He drops the ball. He just is. I love guys like Giannis that fill up the stat sheet. This is Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Fill up the stat sheet. Oh, incredible.
Ben
Triple
Simmons.
doubles. And they are meaningless to you in the last 5 minutes of a game.
Yeah.
And it's frankly what the Jazz deal with Rudy Gobert. Oh, defensive stalwart, shot
All
block.
NBA.
And you can't give Rudy Gobert the ball on offense and hope for something good. You have to hope if Rudy's going to go 20 and 20, he's going to be cleaning up a lot of missed threes, and that's something that's kind of scary. You know, like it. Giannis Antetokounmpo is one of the most overrated players in the NBA.
Yeah.
And maybe not overrated, overvalued players in the NBA. It is so frustrating to me. I think it is one of those things that I just laugh at when people say, "Oh, he's the best player in the league." He's not.
He's not.
Giannis Antetokounmpo is not. And I'm not going to go as far as saying, "Well, I wouldn't have him on my team." I mean, honestly, I can say I wouldn't have Rudy Gobert on my team because the guy can't score. But I look at Giannis, and you have to understand that his highest best use ends with about 5-6 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, and turns it into the Chris Middleton show.
Yeah, that exactly right. I mean, it's remarkable. James Knight says, hope a 36-year-old Chris Paul doesn't get hurt because of all of a sudden Book is the same situation as Don without Mike. Absolutely. I mean, I think if you're the Suns,
it's so funny, isn't it?
You're so well, but that's how these dynamic duos are built.
Yeah.
You know, like that's how when you get to guys like Booker and CP3, when you get to guys like, and I don't know, is Conley and Donovan a dynamic duo?
You can call them a dynamic duo, sure.
You know, like I look at guys like Kyrie and KD or Harden and KD and, you know, Harden and Kyrie. Like,
but I think
you lose one of those and the other guy loses tremendous value.
Yeah, but I also think that, and this probably will piss people off, but the difference between the Nets situation and the Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns is that the Nets have overwhelming talent on the roster. The Nets have talent that you can't replicate throughout the league, right? So like with Book, when he doesn't have CP3, that's really going to hurt the shots he's able to get. That's really going to hurt what, you know, he's able to do. Now he'll still go and get you 30, 35, right? Like he'll still be able to go and do some things. But like when I look at KD or LeBron, let's say, or any of that cut of player, they can lose guys and they can still go out and beat you. And I think that's a huge difference. For Don, not having Mike has been a world changer because now he's forced to play the point a lot of time, and the defense can key in on him because Rudy doesn't do much offensively. Yeah. Whereas with Mike, there's a ton of open options. There's a ton of availability. So I just think it's two different worlds. But my point was when I said it's so funny how these situations work. It's so funny how similar Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell how similar their careers have been. You know, Book's had to lose a bit more than Don has had to lose, but overall, it's just so funny. Like, they're both losing their running mates. They're both having to go above and beyond to win games. You know, Booker has played through his fair share of injuries. Like, they share a lot of similarities, and it'll be really interesting to see if they do indeed wind up matching up in the Western Conference Finals. It'll be really interesting to see who has the better series playing against each other because I think, you know, we've had debates to the death on this show about who is the better player.
Yeah.
And I'm still going with Devin Booker, but at the end of the day, it's amazing how similar like their paths have been.
I just reading about now that the NBA is essentially telling people the Western Conference Finals are starting Sunday, hell or high water. The Suns are in trouble because if the Jazz and now my guess is and we'll see what happens for Game 6, but my guess is the Jazz will be in position on Friday night to win this series.
Yeah,
and if this series is over in 6,
hell or high water, baby.
The Western Conference Finals are starting Sunday, and Chris Paul will not be there.
We don't give a damn if Chris Paul is there.
And obviously, if it goes 7, Game 7 would be Sunday.
Yeah.
So you would start Tuesday. But
what an insane morning for the NBA.
I mean, this to me is a real open door for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
Like listen, and so I'm sorry, I can't remember who was saying.
Strickland.
Cody Strickland was saying there's a ton of tickets left. Go buy tickets. Go fill that place up and get lit because the Jazz need you tonight.
Yeah.
And they need to win this game. All right, let's see. Mighty Rhiannon says free Eric C. Look, I like Eric C, and I'm not trying to be a jerk. I cannot stand when people just start throwing out wild, reckless stuff.
Insane, saying we said things we didn't say.
When you don't, and it just is like, don't come in. Let's be a different show and not have. And we try to do this. We take it really seriously. We don't want to be the same show that's just like, oh, fuck, it's over. Like, we're not going to just throw out wild takes. Oh my God,
I'm Shiva, the god of death.
We don't do that on this show, and so generally we don't. We don't get that, and we don't get ridiculous takes in the comment.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we don't. Our comments are usually really well informed. Jazz fans are usually spot on, and it is a pet peeve of mine when somebody comes in and is like, "Oh, campaign, you said he's going to carry the Suns." Nobody said that. We never even got close to campaign's going to carry. It's just that's why I'm like, and then to just keep trying to jab the bear is like, come on. James Knight said Brooklyn has zero culture. It's just a cashed-up super team. It would mean so much more if the Suns or Jazz win the title.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean,
I don't agree with the portion about they don't have any culture, but I do agree that if, it would be a better's not the word. It would be it would be more Cinderella story-ish if the Suns or the Jazz won the title.
Well, and I think the TV numbers for Salt Lake City are showing you that the Jazz draw a big number.
Definitely.
And so viewership has been exceptionally high for this Jazz Clippers series, and it's not because it's Los Angeles. It's because Salt Lake City's turning out.
Yeah.
The Utah market is turning out for the NBA on
TV. Go buy
TV.
freaking tickets.
Yeah, right? Jeremy Bolton says, we need some Growcock this morning.
Yeah, where's Growcock at?
That was last night in your bedroom. After Mighty Rhiannon says, I'm annoyed that I live in SoCal and can't get some of those still available Jazz tickets. Utahns should be ashamed of themselves. I'm really surprised.
I mean,
wait. Yeah. Ring the shame bell, please. I am really surprised that tickets are still available for this game tonight.
Shame.
Seriously, I'm really surprised by that.
Yeah.
Eric C says, Mighty, I'm in Chino Hills. Well, that explains it.
Yeah.
So you're LeVar Ball.
Yeah.
Jeremy Bolton says Jazz versus Bulls is still the highest, most watch-rated NBA Finals in history. True.
Wow.
Jake, a David and Goliath. Okay.
David and Goliath. Oh, you're saying, I see what you're saying. You're saying that Nets versus Suns Jazz for the title, and if one of those two teams were to beat the Nets would be a great story. I see what you're saying.
The Jazz would be underdogs in that series.
Yeah. No, but he's just saying the David and Goliath narrative would be really good for the league.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't disagree with that. That's a good take.
Josh Leverin says if the Nets win it all, it will mean that's something to Seattle, though.
Well,
yeah, with Jeff Green and Kevin Durant on that roster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they bailed on OKC to go and win somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, that OKC, man. No, I don't have time today to do it, Josh. But you are exactly. I mean, it is. Man, they're terrible people. The owners of the Thunder,
it's not good.
Seattle.
It's not good.
I mean, it is. It's amazing. Just bought a pair. Okay, good. I'm telling you, go buy Jazz tickets. I cannot believe I cannot believe that. I can't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people surmising that it is an issue with Chris Paul's family. And that would be really unfortunate. That would be really, really, really unfortunate.
I mean, again, we don't know if Chris is vaccinated, but vaccination or not, it doesn't prevent you from getting the virus.
I would love to understand why this whole
why go
vaccination
into
thing,
the stands? Why go into the stands?
It's not even. Why are you not vaccinated?
Yeah, it's
like
this is a frustrating as hell conversation.
It's billions of dollars we're talking about. We're not talking about $1 million or $100 million. It's $1 billion industry in the NBA. You're finally in the Western Conference Finals, Chris Paul, on the precipice of playing for an NBA championship. You are one of the best stories in the NBA right now. And now you land in COVID protocols and you're likely to miss game one, especially if it's only a 6-game series.
What was that saying you rolled out earlier in the playoffs about Chris Paul? What was that?
I was trying not to say it, but water's wet and Chris Paul now is unavailable to his team. Like Chris Paul, and I say this all the time, and I said this on Twitter, and people like I was having a Reddit conversation yesterday about Mike Conley. Why are people shocked that Mike Conley's hurt? Why? Like, I don't get it. Like I read Andy Larson in the Salt Lake Tribune, and people are, the funny thing about this? People are applauding Andy Larson for going after the Utah Jazz after the Game 4 loss. And I'm like, is that where we're at with the media in this town? Did
he go after him?
Oh, he got into him a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is shocking because that's not Andy's brand. Mm-hmm. And that's not the Jazz media. Nobody goes after the Jazz.
Nobody does that, no.
But are we really surprised that Mike Conley's hurt? There's so many people who are like, oh, this is really unfortunate. And, but are you surprised? This is what you bought. You knew this.
I don't think that Jazz fans, on the show we have a lot of Jazz fans that are really plugged in and know what they're talking about. So I'm not trying to criticize everybody here, but what is the red banner on ESPN? Is that just the same update?
Clippers, Kawhi likely out.
Oh, okay.
Now it's likely out for Game 5? What? Now it's likely.
See, this is what happens.
I give up.
This is what happens. This is what happens, dude. So now I got to get on Twitter. I got to pull up the Kawhi.
Yeah, it says he's out. It says he's out. Like, it's not likely. It says he's out.
The exact wording of the Bleacher Report update is expected to miss Game 5. Expected to miss Game 5. So
that's a hell of a lot different than he's out for Game 5.
Yeah, that's a lot different than he's definitively missing the game, dude. I don't. You don't come out and say, "Hey, guy hurt his knee. He's expected to miss Game 5," and then you have ESPN rolling out, he's likely to miss Game 5. Like, that to me says Kawhi Leonard is going to finagle his way into playing the game. That to me says, hey, he's going to do what James Harden did and find a way to get into the game. So I don't know, man. I think we don't have time to go around the carousel again, but I won't be surprised if he somehow schemes his way into getting some minutes tonight.
Schemers trying to control their little world.
Yes.
As you like to say.
I will not be surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. Why don't you guys take calls on this show? Because
it's a podcast, not a radio show.
And I wouldn't take calls on a radio show anyway. Yeah. I'm not a huge believer in that.
No.
Can we talk about Girl Scout cookies, please?
Yes, yes.
Amazon Prime Day is coming up in the early
Prime
Day.
We got time for Prime Day. This Girl Scout thing is kind of frustrating. So, Girl Scout cookies during the pandemic, $15 million surplus. Well, you would think that you'd be able to just go online and buy them, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in digital world, everything's cool. All right, great. Let's get some Samoas and whatever.
Their website is girlscoutcookiesmakemefat.com.
Yeah. So everything's cool. We can easily get them. The issue is that to buy Girl Scout cookies, you have to have like an ID number of one of the Girl Scouts like accounts because you have to buy it from like a scout.
So here's my ask. If you have a daughter that's a Girl Scout, or if your wife is a pack leader,
Yes.
whatever, just
slide into the DMs. We need the information. We need the codes.
Okay,
I need the launch codes.
Best Girl Scout cookie.
I want it.
The peanut butter one for me. That's my
The Do-si-do?
Do-si-dos, yeah, for sure.
The peanut butter cookie sandwich?
The chocolate one. The chocolate with the peanut butter.
Tag-along.
Tag-alongs. That's it. Give me like 3-4 boxes of those. We're good to go.
There's no doubt it's Samoa's.
Thin Mints, obviously.
Followed by Thin Mints.
Okay, question on the show. Give me some reaction in the comments. Do you freeze your Thin Mints? Do you put them in the freezer and take them out like 3 days later?
Who doesn't freeze their
But I don't know. I want to see if this is a thing. We've been surprised in the past. Is this a thing?
Jake, stop it. We don't live in Russia. We freeze our Thin Mints in this country.
Where's the Italian?
Right? Like we freeze our Thin Mints in there. What are you talking about?
I freeze them, but I'm just asking if people do that.
I'm going to start reading Eric C. comments again if you keep saying stuff like that.
Let's consult the douche meter.
Like all of this ridiculous commenting you're doing about Girl Scout cookies is inflammatory and not welcome here.
Well,
we absolutely freeze our Thin Mints in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Dang it. Jeremy Bolton says, I ain't got no time to freeze cookies. Get them in my belly. Well, Jeremy, I can't say I disagree with you.
You have a deal.
Mighty Rhiannon says, if unchecked, I would eat Girl Scout cookies by the sleeve. Yes, absolutely. It is what it is. Eric C. says, I bought tickets to that carousel, Jake.
Good.
Okay,
good. So you bought tickets to the game. I'm proud of you, bro.
Mighty Rhiannon says, I don't freeze Thin Mints. I eat Thin Mints. Well,
see, I'm telling you, it's not as much of a thing as you're making it out to be. People are just, people want to eat.
Do you ever experience something in your life and it makes you lose hope in the world? And you just wonder, how am I going to get out of bed tomorrow?
Oh, shit. Damn, I am tripping.
When people talk to me about not freezing Thin Mints, it's like, okay.
See, now that's just not the way to go here, Karen.
Karen, what are you doing? We freeze our Thin Mints, man. Listen, if you don't want to freeze Thin Mints, go to Sochi, go to Baghdad, go to Damascus. Those countries don't freeze their Thin Mints. Okay, here in the United States of America, the great U.S. of A., stop the steal and stuff and freeze your Thin Mints. It's just, it's what we do. I should stop. Driftwood says Samoa's, no question. Frozen gummy worms are amazing too.
Frozen gummy worms.
Okay.
Bro.
You freeze Snickers, not Thin Mints, Mighty Rhiannon. Okay. To be clear.
We
should just turn off
the comments. To be clear,
today.
People are now saying that it's not a good idea to freeze Thin Mints. Just to be clear.
Why? Why, Rhiannon? Why would you ever freeze a Snickers bar?
Okay, fuck you.
Like, when you put that thing in your mouth and it just explodes?
Whoa.
And there's just caramel lactation on your palate?
Wow.
There's, like, that'd be, like, the assholes who freeze Twix bars. I'm like, guy, who are you people? Right? Like, are you the ones that kick your puppies when you get home? I don't understand this. Like, why would you freeze a Snickers bar? Man. Like, stop it. Stop it. Jeffrey Dahmer froze his Thin Mints. Well, he also ate testicles. But, I'm not doing that. Just because
you felt these balls.
Just because you jumped off a bridge doesn't mean I'm jumping off a bridge. But I am freezing my Thin Mints. Hey, how did they know that Jeffrey Dahmer smoked? No, seriously. Do you know how they knew that Jeffrey Dahmer smoked?
No.
They found butts behind the couch. Anybody? No, any? He was a butts. Anyway.
Is that a real question?
That is a real question. Chain smoker for them butts. I
want more.
Freeze Thin Mints or China wins. See? If you don't freeze your Thin Mints, China wins, man.
Well.
Thank you, Real Fat Jesus. James Knight wants to know, do you think Grocock freezes his Thin Mints?
Bro, Grocock is becoming a thing on the show.
Jeremy Bolton says Dahmer would love Grocock. I think he would. How did Jeffrey Dahmer get into this conversation? Never had Thin Mints, so okay.
Wow.
Jose.
Whatever.
How? How?
How is that even possible?
Okay.
Like-
Jose Luis, BG, get on the Girl Scouts website and buy Thin Mints. You have not lived. It is as though you've not been through puberty at this point. I mean, and maybe you haven't.
You're
I don't
such
know
a
how
smart
old you
person. You really are lost, aren't
Yeah,
you?
I mean, how have you never had Thin Mints?
I didn't know that was even. Yeah, wow.
My God.
Wow.
Gavin Dale says frozen Reese's are the
Yes.
But see, because you can put it in your mouth and it will melt on your tongue.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? God, that is terrible. That is terrible. Awful. Jose says those are not a thing in Mexico.
Frozen Thin Mints aren't a thing in Mexico.
Well, see, maybe this is how we begin to have proper relations with Mexico.
Yeah.
We ship you cases and crates of Thin Mints.
You have a deal.
I mean, forget NAFTA. Let's do Thin Mints. I mean,
all I have in this world is my
balls and my Thin Mints. You know, I mean, balls and my Thin Mints. And what else do I really need?
God bless.
You know. Now Fat Jesus says Jose Luis is a spy. Could be if you've never had Thin Mints. Mighty Rhiannon says Girl Scout s'mores are the best. Do-si-dos are second. Have we had s'mores?
Don't think so.
I don't know if
We stick with Old Reliable.
We did have s'mores last time? Mrs. Monty says she likes them. They're good. She also likes Grocock, by the way.
Well.
Grocock definitely freezes them, Eric C.
Okay,
says.
has Grocock made an appearance in the comments today?
No. He has not been here today.
By the way, he is an Aussie, just saying.
He is in Australia.
James, where's your boy?
He was probably carried off by one of those carpenter spiders or whatever they're called. Craftsman spiders. Those big-ass things that are the size of like a Harrier jet.
I'm screwed.
Yeah. Burn the whole country down. Dude, I hate spiders. My wife is like, oh, we got to save the spiders and put them outside so they'll eat the aphids on my roses. I'm like, no, I'm going to smash it with my shoe.
Cold-blooded, clean, methodical, and thorough.
It's over. It's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yep.
Anyway, so's the show. We'll keep you up to date. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram for the latest on Mike Conley. I got to think he does not play tonight. Mike Conley, does he play or not play tonight?
No.
I don't think Mike Conley plays tonight. Now, especially with Kawhi out, Jazz should win with or without Mike Conley. So I don't think he plays tonight. Latest on Chris Paul and Kawhi Leonard as well. Oh, by the way, give us a thumbs up on this channel right now. This video, hit thumbs up, then subscribe. We are giving away an Xbox Series S as soon as we get to 1,500 subscribers. All you have to do is subscribe, take a picture that you're subscribed, you put it on Twitter and Instagram. But you have to tag us both. The Monty Show, MONTY The Monty Show, and SLC Supercars. Until tomorrow, say, freeze that Grocock.
Freeze that Grocock.